Hello and welcome back. Today we're taking a look at the top 10 goal-scoring centers, and this aligns with the data draft strategy of fading centers in general. Now, normally we talk about that in terms of you can find point-per-game centers deep, but today we'll look at a bunch of goal-scoring centers that you can find. We'll look at the top 10, but we'll also look at some incredible value targets, centers with 30-goal pace over the last 3 seasons and who are going much later in your drafts, so stay tuned for that later in the video. But let's start at number 10. Sidney Crosby is as consistent as they come. You can see on this trend graph, he's a 70, 68, 72, 68, 72-ish, 68. He'll somewhere be in that range. This is a combined rating between completeness and a weighted rating value. So he is going to give you some completeness in the sense of he's got 1.23 hits per game. The shot volume, really nice at 3.39 shots per game. That's really good for most players, but to see that out of a center who's usually a pass-first guy, but he has been scoring goals. 42 goals last year, 94 points. Really excellent numbers for a guy of his age. Only 10 power play goals, 3 game winners. That's a little bit low for an elite level player, but that might explain his 29.8 ADP, which should have to be value on a guy like Crosby. I would not feel weird drafting him at all in this third round range. That 0.51 goal per game pace was last year. If we take a look at his 3-year average, 35, so he was a little bit above that. There could be some regression, but even at that, with that regression, he's at a 90.3-year average with more game winners than he had this season, around the same number of power play goals, and you're going to get some power play points. That power play was not great last year. They do need to fix that, but he's been averaging the shot volume 3.25 over the last 3 seasons, so you're going to get these metrics out of him, everything point per game, goal per game, assists, shots, power play, and some hits. Just not going to get a ton of blocks, but he's very complete, very consistent, not injured all that much, knock on wood. After that stretch in the middle of his career where he was getting injured a lot, he's been relatively healthy over the last 3 years, so this is a very consistent play, and at ADP 29, that should be value. But speaking of value, we're going to look at Brock Nelson. He is one of the most disrespected goal scorers in all of fantasy hockey. You can see here he's been trending upward very slightly over the last 4 seasons, up to a 59, calculated as a 60 when you factor in some other things here. But games percentage, really healthy, very, rarely out of the lineup, and he just goes about his business. 3 shots per game, you love to see that. You got 34 goals last year in 82 games, a 0.41 goal per game pace. And when you look at his 3-year average, which I have to scroll down to find because he is very disrespected, 35 goal pace over the last 3 seasons. So you're going to get 30 to 35 out of him. And at ADP 160, it's hard to think of a player who's putting up that much value for you in terms of goals and shots, and who's getting disrespected like that in ADP. The Islanders are not a sexy team. He's not a sexy name necessarily. He is single position, which is one of the factors that may drop him a little bit, but this ADP is complete disrespect. He does get some power play points, had 19 last year, 9 goals, 10 assists, only 2 game winners, but you're getting that elite level shot volume. Over 3 shots per game is 95th percentile, 94th percentile in goals. Doesn't hit or block much, but you're not expecting that at this ADP. So an incredible value play in the top 10 of the top 10 goal scoring centers in terms of 3-year average. Now, another player that we have to talk about, and it will be, this guy is the bane of my existence, if only because there are 2 players with the identical name Sebastian Aho in the league, and they always mess up my data. So you can see here, this graph is both players combined up until this season. So this is going to be skewed, but the rest of this should be good. Sebastian Aho is one of the more complete centermen in the NHL. Very complete in terms of fantasy production. The only thing that I don't like is the shot volume is a touch low, which is probably why he gets a little bit of disrespect in the ADP, but 1.14 point per game is really nice. 89 points in 78 games last year, 32 on the power play, 10 game winners. If you have extra point waiting for that, that's also very huge. Then you've got 11 power play goals, 21 power play assists, a shorthanded goal in there as well. He wins faceoffs if you're in a faceoff league. The only thing he doesn't do is hit or block, but he is a very consistent goal scorer, a guy that you can count on pretty much for 30 to 35 every single year. As we look at his 3-year average, averaging 36 in the last 3 seasons, 79 points and 77, so just above a point per game. He did break out for a little bit more than that last year, and that might have had to do with Jake Gensel coming over Aho, Gensel, and Jarvis were an incredible line in the second half last year, so it'll be interesting to see who he gets paired up with this year. I assume Jarvis will be there with him as well, but that line combination shouldn't matter too much on depending on Sebastian Aho in your fantasy league, because he's been very consistent over the last 3 seasons. And that brings us up to number 7, and this is a guy that we touched on last video in the Wingers video, but we'll talk on a little bit about him. Up next is Tage Thompson. He was a guy that was trending upward over the number of seasons previous to last year, where he was a 15, 41, 63, 73 in this combined rating. He dropped off last year. He did miss some time, a couple games missed with injury. The power play was thrown off. They were not very good. He is dual position eligible, which is nice to see. The goal totals, 29 on the year last year, is a down year for him. But even with that, 3.46 shots per game, a lot of those come in bunches. He has those 8-9 shots games, and then some games where he's a little bit below that, 2-3 shots per game here and there. But 16 power play points is really low for him. 9 power play goals is also really low for him. As I try to find his 3-year average on the fly, which is always a difficult task, Tage Thompson was averaging 38 goals each of the last 3 seasons, and that includes that one big year where he broke out for 48 or 49. 72 points and 75 on average, 22 power play points, 13 power play goals. The shot volume is there at 3.62 shots per game, so he's going to be a shooter. He's going to be a goal scorer, and on the power play, he should get more power play goals than he did last year. On top of that, he throws in 1.1 hits per game, which is not bad either. If you're in a points league, that will give him a little bit more of a floor. If you're in a categories league, that'll make him a little bit more complete. At ADP 43, that's reasonable. I got him last year at the tail end of the first round into the early part of the second round, which was way, way, way too high. Huge mistake on my part in the Creators League. We won't be making that mistake again this year. But this is a guy at ADP 43. You're betting on upside. I don't like the risk there, and I'm probably not going to go back to him because he burned me last year. But this is a really good value prospect there at 43.4 for a very high goal scoring ceiling and the shot volume being very consistent. Now, up next at number 6, we also talked about this guy last video, so we'll just touch on it briefly. Steven Stamkos, you're getting a point per game, 3.32 shots per game, half a goal per game, 40 goal pace, 39 power play points last year, 19 power play goals, but he's coming to a new power play for the first time in his career. He is dual position eligible, which helps, but as I said in the last video, 45 is a little bit risky for me just based on the fact that he's a new, coming to a new team for the first time. And we don't know where that power play or how that power play is going to shake out in terms of where everybody is. I would assume they're going to keep Stamkos in his office, but we'll have to wait and see until we see it. We want to kind of err on the side of caution and not expect this level of production from Steven Stamkos. At number 5, we also have a guy that we talked about in the Wingers video because these guys are all dual position eligible. Center right wing is even more scarce than center left wing, so you're going to want to pay attention to Sam Reinhart, especially if you're in face-off leagues. He doesn't take a ton of them, but he takes some, and if you can put him on your center right wing or center position on any given night, he will add some positional flexibility there. Last year, coming off a career season, 57 goals, but you can expect around 40. He has a 40 goal, 40 assist, 81 point, 3-year average in terms of those metrics. So you're going to get power play goals from him, power play points. 11 game winners last year is awesome to see as well. Shot volume, 92nd percentile at 2.84. This is a relatively high ADP for him, though, in my opinion. I would like to fade him and probably get him at the mid-3rd round into the early 4th round range, just because of the fact that they had the short off season and he is coming off of a career year. Now, up next is arguably the best player in fantasy, and that is a discussion that we can have now. Everybody, myself included, pretty much always suggests taking McDavid at number 1, but there is a case to be made for McKinnon at number 1. 1.71 point per game last year, 0.62 goals per game, 51 goals on the season, 140 points, 48 power play points, 9 game winners, 10 power play goals, 38 power play assists. You got over an assist per game. You got almost 5 shots per game, 4.93. Everything is 100th percentile except for goals, which is 99th. This is elite level. This is why there's a case to be made in terms of number 1. And that's why he is listed at center number 1, because over the last 3 seasons, it's a lot of the same. 41 goal average, 71 assist average, 113 point average, 36 power play point average. All of that is lower than McDavid. However, you're getting 5.04 average shots per game. So the shot volume is the differential between the two of them, and both of them are on elite level power plays. You don't have to worry about that. MacKinnon does seem to play more time on ice, but he does get banged up more. So with that in mind, I would still go McDavid over MacKinnon at the number 1 position, just because of the fact that McDavid is usually a little bit healthier and has hit 60 goals before, as we saw a couple years ago. But MacKinnon is in that same stratosphere now, which is very dangerous to think about if you're any of those teams in the Western Conference, as they won the Cup in 22 and they haven't really been close since. But MacKinnon should be one of the more consistent producers that you're going to find. That's why he's getting picked at ADP 2, which is probably accurate based on what we just talked about. We're also going to talk about a guy who had a career year last year, and that is Brayden Point at number 3. Brayden Point coming off of a 46-goal season. I believe he's been above that, actually. I could be incorrect about that career year, but it was very good. 90 points, 46 goals, 32 power play points, 12 game winners, 15 power play goals. He's averaging 2.8 shots per game, which is a touch low, but it's still really good. Elite level, 92nd percentile. Power play numbers are really elite level. That power play is not changing. It's going to change form, but he's still on it, and it still has Kucherov and Hedman and a number of the usual suspects, just not Steven Stamkos this year. He's been very consistent over the last 3 seasons, so you don't really have to worry about the fact that he was above his 3-year average pace, but he is a guy that is averaging around this pace. As I bring up his 3-year average, 41 goal, 3-year average pace, 81 points. So he was above his point total, his point average, and he was right about a little bit 5 goals above his 3-year average goal total. So there is a risk of regression, but he's getting priced in with that regression. At ADP 39, this is definitely a good play, because even though he has popped in recent years and he has missed some time in previous seasons, in these seasons back here, he's been relatively healthy lately, and he is cemented in that top 6 and on that top power play. 1.1 point per game last year, a little bit above what you would expect from him normally, but this is still a very consistent player. At ADP 39, that is pretty good value. At number 2, we've got Connor McDavid. No surprise here. He should be the number 1 player taken off your board. This was that argument that I was talking about earlier with the shot volume, 3.46 compared to 5 shots per game. That's a pretty significant difference, and that would be why MacKinnon is priced in or a little bit higher in terms of the data here. But with that said, 100th percentile in power play points, 44. Only 5 game winners is a little bit weird to see, considering how dominant he is. Only 7 power play goals, but 37 power play assists. He's got a shorthanded goal in there, 1.32 assists per game. He had 100 assists last year, which is incredible. So did Kucherov, but both of those are incredible feats. And then you also get 1.55 hits per game, which is something that he's added in over the last 2 seasons. The year previous to this, where he went absolutely ballistic, he did start hitting that season, so he was incredibly complete, and he was putting up about 1.9 points per game that season. So that's his ceiling. He can get back to that any given year. He's got to be motivated after coming within 1 goal of winning the Stanley Cup. So this is a guy you're not going to think about. You're just going to draft him at number 1 and sit back and watch your team succeed. At number 1 on this list is a guy we talked about last video, and that's Leon Draisaitl. And the main reason, he's center left wing dual eligible. He's got a little bit lower shot volume than McDavid, which is a knock on him. That's probably why he's going at ADP 5, because you can get 5 shot per game shot volume out of MacKinnon. You can get 4.6 out of Pastrnak. You can get in that 3+, 4+ range for Matthews, depending on the year. But with Leon Draisaitl, the shots are a little bit lower, but the points are incredible. 1.31 point per game, 106 points last year, 41 goals, 39 power play points, 7 game winners, 21 power play goals. So if you're in a points league that weighs those heavier, he's your guy at number 2. The dual position eligibility will be nice, and the fact that he's getting you all those power play goals, the game winners, all of that stuff, that's kind of an added bonus on top of what he usually provides. That will make him incredibly valuable. And over the past couple seasons, it's been a lot of the same. 49 goal average, 114 point average, 47 power play point average, so a little bit lower in some of those metrics last season, which is kind of crazy to think about based on the year he had, but you're getting elite level performance out of him, and you can watch the other video for a little bit more of an in-depth breakdown, but that pretty much covers the top 10 list. Now let's take a look at the full list and look at some value plays. But wait, I know what you're thinking. Data Draft, you did not talk about Austin Matthews. Actually, A bunch of you pointed this out when I uploaded the video yesterday. For some reason, he was not in the data set that I had. There was some sort of naming mismatch error type of thing where he was not in that list. But obviously, this is your number one goal scoring center. And the funny part of this is that he kind of almost doesn't belong on this list because of how incredible he has been as a goal scorer. So one of the things to note here, obviously 1.32 points per game is awesome, but this 0.85 goals per game, obviously last year he went off for 69 goals. To put that into perspective, that's the 18th highest goal scoring season of all time. It's the highest scoring season from any player from going all the way back to 95-96 with Mario Lemieux. So that's the kind of company he is keeping right now. And if you look at his 3-year average pace, it's really incredible to look at. 56.33. That's almost 6 goals higher than the second place guy or the number one guy on this list, Leon Draisaitl. It's also 21 goals higher than Sidney Crosby, who started off this list. So that's how incredible his production has been, and it gets even better than that. So if you look at his career goal per game average, he's a 53.3 goal pace, 0.65 goals per game. You compare that with arguably the best goal scorer in the history of the NHL, Alex Ovechkin. At this point in Ovechkin's career, he was at 0.62 goals per game, which is around that pace, but a little bit lower. And he had a high of a 65 goal season. So Matthews has already eclipsed Ovechkin, who might actually break the goal scoring record this season. So to put that into perspective, this is one of the best goal scorers of all time. And to think he didn't factor in on this list is absolutely insane. I don't know how that happened. But regardless, he is center 3, because if you look at McDavid and McKinnon and the arguments we made about shot volume and point ceiling, one of the things that Matthews doesn't do is he doesn't get a lot of assists. Only 38 last year, 107 points, 69 of those were goals, which is crazy, but not a ton of assists there. So 87th percentile brings him down just a touch. He does hit and block, 1.15 blocks per game, 1.1 hits per game. You're going to get power play points, but not the elite level that you're getting out of McDavid. This is almost half of what McDavid can put up when he's at his best. Same thing with McKinnon. But you are getting 8 game winners, 18 power play goals. So if you're in a points league that weighs those heavier, you're going to get a lot of those from him. And you're getting excellent shot volume, 100th percentile, 4.56. I believe that's third behind McKinnon and Pastrnak in the NHL. So you're getting elite level stats. He is relatively complete. And this is a guy who's usually healthy. Sometimes he misses some games here and there, but 92.7% of his games over the last 3 seasons he's been a part of. And then you're looking at the trend graph here. There's a little bit of variance, but that's not really any statistically significant variance. He did have this one season back here in 2022. That was a season where he had almost the same goal scoring pace, but it was in a shortened season. So this is a guy who's hit that 0.8-ish goal per game mark 3 different times. So 0.85, 0.79, and another 0.8 plus season where he put up 60 goals in a season. So he's done it a number of times now at ADP 5. That's crazy. So to think about what we just said about Leon Draisaitl at 5, Matthews at 5 is also crazy. He should be the 3rd or 4th player off your board in your draft. It would probably, for me, go McDavid, McKinnon, and then depending on how you want to go with it, Matthews could be number 3 if you're in a point league that weighs goals a little bit heavier with the shot volume and all of that. If you're in a league that weighs, if you're in a categories league and you're looking for completeness, Matthews is one of the best. So if I switch this up and go to completeness rating right now, it will change a little bit of the numbers, but essentially an 87, the highest ranked player on the Player Hub is around a 90, and he has been at that level before. He's top 5 in terms of completeness because of the fact that he does hit and block shots. So incredible production from Matthews. This is nothing new to any of you. You're all very much aware of how good of a goal scorer he is. But just to put that into perspective, he is one of the best of all time. And when we turn and look at the total list, you will see the separation that he gets from all of the other players. So there's Matthews up at the top, and there's a huge gap, a 5-6 point gap between 6 goal gap, I should say, between him and Draisaitl. There's a 10 goal gap between him and McDavid, and then it gets even worse as you go down. McKinnon, you got Reinhart here, so a huge amount of separation. That's why he's kind of a standout and did not necessarily factor in the top 10 list. He's kind of in a category of his own. And then as we start to look for some value, you can see the ADPs over here. There are some value plays that we talked about, Brock Nelson being arguably the number one value play, but there are a couple of others and we should touch on them. Pettersson just barely missed. He's at a 35 goal pace over the last 3 seasons. He's been relatively consistent there. He does have his ups and downs in terms of, within a season, but season to season, he's been relatively consistent. You've got Adrian Kempe, who is dual position eligible, and he does get some good shot volume, a little bit below his 3-year average at 28. But a guy we've got to talk about here, Roope Hintz, he's a very good value play here. 30 goals last year, his 3-year average around 35. And last year was a little bit of a down year for him and Robertson. I would expect them both to bounce back, depending on who they're playing with. They were playing with Pavelski. He's obviously gone, but this is a guy who should be a lot higher in terms of where he's drafted. ADP 94 is kind of crazy for how productive he has been. Same thing could be said about Bo Horvat. He's averaging around 3 shots per game. He's averaging around 34 goals per season, and he's going at ADP 148 because nobody wants those Islanders. So if you want to think about a theme, nobody seems to like Islanders for anything in terms of fantasy. Dobson gets faded. You look at Brock Nelson, we've talked about. Here's Bo Horvat. Matt Barzal's been faded in years past. He's starting to round out his game and increase his shot volume. So there's a ton of value to be found on Long Island for fantasy purposes. Then as you go down a little bit further, Mark Scheifele has always been a consistent option for me. 25 goals last year is a bit low considering what he can do. That 33.5 goal 3-year average is much better. The shot volume is usually high 2s, not quite 3 shots per game, but he is around a point per game guy year over year, and you're going to get him at 134. That's just before the 12th round. So this is easily a very nice value play. One of the guys that I usually go to consistently year over year. Another guy that I go to is Dylan Larkin at ADP 88, the top line first power play unit in Detroit with all that talent that they have to work with. He was hitting his 3-year average, 33 goals last year, 32 on a 3-year average. And this is a really nice place to get him at 88. Usually last year he was a little bit, I don't want to say higher, but like in terms of ADP, he was a little bit lower. You had to pay a premium to get him. In years past, he was going way further down in the draft, and you could grab him at value. 2 years ago, I got him off the wire at the end of my draft. So it varies wildly, but he's always very productive, really good shot volume there. And then we also have Carter Verhaeghe. He's dual position eligible, same goal pace, and the shot volume is also there with him. So around 3 shots per game. That's a theme with a lot of these goal scorers. They do like to shoot. You have Jared McCann, dual eligible center left wing, 29 goals last season, 32 on his 3-year average. So he's a really nice value buy there. Usually gets some shot volume, but very goal heavy, not a lot of assists there. There's going to be some sort of problem with anybody who's got that ADP that low, whether they can't stay healthy, they don't have the high point ceiling, they're only good in 2 or 3 categories, whatever it is. You can get something out of them, but you just have to be aware of what it is. So McCann, kind of a 2 or 3 category specialist in terms of goals and shots and maybe some power play production. You also have Jordan Kyrou, who's around a point per game, 124 ADP, and hit his 3-year average right on the nose, 31 goals last season. Mika Zibanejad quietly going about his business, a little bit of a down year last year, under a point per game, 26 goals on the season, but he's averaging 31, and he has hit 40, almost 50 goal pace at stretches in the past. I would look for a huge bounce back from Zibanejad, and you're going to get him at 64 ADP, which is really great value for a guy who should be a point per game. He's cemented on that top power play, and you're going to get that one-timer on the power play, so you're going to get power play goals as well. Another guy that I never thought I would see at this ADP, John Tavares, 110. The goal production has dried up a little bit. He used to be a 40-goal guy. Now he's basically a 30-goal guy, but he is still getting some power play time in Toronto. He is still top 6. They are a very high-scoring team. And at ADP 110, you could do a lot worse than John Tavares. And then we've got Matt Duchene at the bottom here. 169 is complete disrespect for a dual position eligible center right wing who has 25 goals last year, but 30 on his 3-year average. He might be on the downside of his career in terms of on the back 9, but he still has some production there, and Dallas is a very deep offensive team, which could go either way. It could be productive for him playing with all those good players, or it could be detrimental because they have to share the scoring amongst a lot of players. So think of that how you will, but 169.8 is disrespect for a guy like Matt Duchene. Hopefully this gave you some deeper options as you head into your draft. If you're looking to fade centers, some of these guys will fit that strategy to a T. We just mentioned a bunch of them. Of the bunch, Brock Nelson would probably be your best value just given his goal pace, but also you have a bunch of other options as well. I want to thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for the next video where we're going to cover the top 10 goal scoring defensemen.